Good evening, I'm Faye Kwan, and these are our top stories for tonight. The US is set to deploy a second aircraft carrier to the Middle East as tensions with Iran intensify. Meanwhile, President Donald Trump says a new deal with Tehran could be reached within a month. All that and more coming up on AWANI International. The US plans to deploy a second aircraft carrier to the Middle East, stepping up pressure on Iran to strike a deal over its nuclear program. The move will put 2 US aircraft carriers and their escort warships in the region.
The USS Abraham Lincoln and its accompanying guided missile destroyers are already operating in the Arabian Sea. The USS Gerald R. Ford is now expected to deploy to the region in the coming weeks. It comes just days after Donald Trump said he was considering a new round of talks with Iran. Those negotiations have yet to materialize. Instead, Iranian officials have been engaging with regional intermediaries, with a senior security figure visiting Oman and Qatar this week to relay messages to Washington. Iran has insisted it will not curb its nuclear program unless Western sanctions are rolled back. Gulf Arab states have also warned that any military escalation could quickly spiral.
President Donald Trump, meanwhile, says the US must reach an agreement with Iran, expressing confidence that a deal can be secured within the next month. He also cautions that failure to reach an accord would have serious consequences.
We have to make a deal, otherwise it's going to be very traumatic. Very traumatic. I don't want that to happen, but we have to make a deal. They should have made a deal the first time, and they got Midnight Hammer instead. And this will be very traumatic for Iran if they don't make a deal.
Those are the headlines for tonight. We'll be back with more after the break.
Buli di sekolah. Isu ini bukan perkara baru. Buli tertakluk kepada perbuatan agresif secara fizikal.
Apa sebenarnya jerabu punca utama yang menyumbang kepada masalah ini serta kesannya kepada kesihatan kita?
Mereka akan mengalami iritasi-iritasi kepada mata. Selain itu, iritasi kepada saluran pernafasan.
Daulat Tuanku.
Welcome back. Thailand's Prime Minister Anutin Chanvirakul says the Pheu Thai Party has agreed to join his Phum Jai Thai Party to form a new coalition government. The announcement follows a party meeting between party leaders held earlier today, as talks to finalize the post-election power sharing gather pace. Pheu Thai, backed by the family of former Prime Minister Thaksin Shinawatra, had finished third in Thailand's elections last Sunday, while the Phum Jai Thai Party had secured 193 seats in the 500-member lower house. It has been seeking to build a stable alliance of at least 280 lawmakers to govern for a full 4-year term. With Pheu Thai's provisional tally of 74 seats and the support of lawmakers from smaller parties, an Anutin-led coalition would hold a comfortable parliamentary majority. The formal installation of the new government is still weeks away as official election procedures continue, but an early deal on the coalition makeup allows Anutin to begin shaping policy priorities. He has already signaled plans to retain a core team of technocrats, including his cabinet's finance and commerce ministers. In other news, US President Donald Trump is considering scaling back some tariffs on steel and aluminium. According to a Financial Times report, officials at the Commerce Department and the Office of the US Trade Representative are currently reviewing the existing tariff structure.
Under the proposal, certain products will be exempted and any further expansion of the tariff list will be paused. Instead, the administration is expected to concentrate on more targeted national security investigations. The review takes place against the backdrop of mounting cost of living pressures, which remain a significant political issue ahead of the November midterm elections. The Trump administration had imposed tariffs of up to 50% on more than 400 steel and aluminum products last year, including wind turbines, appliances, and motorcycles, among others.
The US and Taiwan have finalized a new reciprocal trade agreement, lowering tariffs on Taiwanese imports into the US from 20 to 15%. In exchange, Taiwan agreed to gradually remove or reduce tariffs on almost all American goods.
Taipei has also committed to significantly increasing purchases of US products between 2025 and 2029. It includes $44.4 billion worth of liquefied natural gas and crude oil, $15.2 billion in civil aircraft and engines, and a further $25.2 billion in power grid equipment, generators, marine equipment, and steel-making machinery. Taiwan will also cut tariffs of up to 26% on many American agricultural products. Under the agreement, more than 2,000 categories of Taiwanese goods will be exempt from reciprocal tariffs. As a result, the average US tariff on Taiwanese exports will fall to 12.33% as the US trade deficit with Taiwan continues to widen. In the first 11 months of 2025, it stood at $126.9 billion, up from $73.7 billion a year earlier.
Meanwhile, President Donald Trump reiterated his calls for Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu to receive a pardon over corruption charges. He says the country's president, Isaac Herzog, should be ashamed for not granting amnesty, urging the Israeli public to hold him accountable.
Pardon over this trial that's going on. The president of Israel, the primary power he's got is the power to give pardons, and he's not. He said he's given it 5 different times, but he doesn't want to do it because I guess he loses his power. I think the people of Israel should really shame him. He's disgraceful for not giving it.
Netanyahu is the first sitting prime minister in Israel's history to face criminal charges. He was indicted in 2019 on counts of bribery, fraud, and breach of trust, all of which he denies. Trump has raised the issue several times in recent months. In December, he claimed Herzog told him a pardon process was underway, which Herzog's office later denied. In its latest response, the Israeli president's office said any pardon request is still under review at the Justice Ministry in accordance with legal procedures.
The Trump administration has announced a sweeping rollback of U.S. climate policy, repealing a key scientific finding that greenhouse gas emissions endanger human health. The move also eliminates federal tailpipe emission standards for cars and trucks, marking what President Donald Trump called the biggest deregulatory action in U.S. history.
Under the process just completed by the EPA, we are officially terminating the so-called endangerment finding, a disastrous Obama-era policy that severely damaged the American auto industry and massively drove up prices for American consumers.
The endangerment finding is a policy introduced under former President Barack Obama that allowed greenhouse gases to be regulated under the Clean Air Act. Trump's move now ends federal requirements for automakers to meet vehicle emission standards. He argues the repeal will save taxpayers $1.3 trillion, while industry groups say prior rules were challenging given current EV demand. However, environmental groups warn the decision will increase pollution and spark a major legal battle, further rolling back U.S. climate policy. Trump previously withdrew the U.S. from the Paris Climate Agreement and ended tax credits for EVs and renewable energy.
The Bangladesh Nationalist Party, or BNP, has secured a landslide victory in the general election, returning to power after nearly 2 decades. The results positions party leader Tariq Rahman to become prime minister as the country emerges from months of political unrest and economic disruption.
Official results show the BNP and its allies secured at least 212 of the 299 seats contested, while the opposition, Jamaat-e-Islami, and its allies won 77 seats, its strongest performance in years after a previous ban was lifted. In its manifesto, the BNP pledged to create jobs, protect low-income households, and ensure fair prices for farmers. A referendum held alongside the poll could introduce constitutional reforms, including term limits for prime ministers and stronger judicial independence. The election is widely seen as Bangladesh's first truly competitive vote in years, following the collapse of former Prime Minister Sheikh Hasina's government in 2024. Analysts say the BNP's strong majority could help avoid legislative gridlock and restore short-term stability in the Muslim-majority nation of 175 million people.
US President Donald Trump has removed a 25% penalty tariff on Indian imports over its purchase of Russian oil and cut the reciprocal tariff rate to 18%. While the move signals easing tensions between Washington and New Delhi, what does it mean for bilateral ties? And can India realistically stop buying Russian oil? Dr. Rahul Mishra from Jawaharlal Nehru University weighs in.
Recent free trade agreements that were signed between India and the EU, India and UK, with New Zealand, Oman, UAE, a range of agreements have been signed recently without giving in to the US tariff pressure. Particularly the India-EU FTA, which gives a lot of concessions to India, came as a wake-up call for the American policymakers. And that is why this sudden breakthrough in India-US tariff talks. Now, Trump does not look at tariffs purely as a trade and commerce and bilateral economic relations measure. He looks at tariffs as a political tool. So him saying that India is going to reduce or stop buying Russian oil is, of course, a political statement, and that has to be taken with a pinch of salt. Even though India has said that it is looking for possibilities of importing oil from Venezuela, that again is subject to a lot of speculation. How, in what context, in how much time from now, India will be able to import oil from Venezuela is something that remains to be seen. We must wait and watch how that happens. Diversification, yes, that has been India's priority, and Indian policymakers, not just the Prime Minister and the Foreign Minister, Indian policymakers have made it abundantly clear that for 1.4 billion people, this is something that is of national interest and a security concern. So whether whether the oil comes from Russia or Venezuela is not a matter of consideration. What is important here is that energy supplies are secure.
The US decision to roll back tariffs on India may signal a thaw, but Rahul says it does not mean a full reset in relations, nor a shift in India's strategic balancing between Washington and Moscow.
To say that this is a reset in ties, or India and the US are back to their previous position, I think it would be too hopeful an assessment. It is not a situation where everything has been restored. Both India and US realize that they are very important to each other. For the Americans, India's role and India's continued presence in the Indo-Pacific is important. For India, technology and greater trade, export, of course, are important. But having said that, because India wants to have improved ties with the US does not mean that India is going to dump Russia, as it were. So this zero-sum game is something that India is not playing here, and India is only diversifying its relations and its trade interactions and dependencies and interactions. So even with regards to other countries in the Middle East.
That concludes AWANI International for tonight. Stay with us as we track the strategies and power shifts shaping the new global order. For more updates, visit international.astroawani.com and follow us on social media. I'm Faye Kwan. Thank you for watching and good night.